Were you keyed into the casting process? It's been said that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
were Gyllenhaal was your vote at the time. Is that true?
yeah. I mean, initially, Chris. Well, we're still close, but we were. Chris was not Chris Nolan, yet, and so in the early days, it was Chris and Emma, his wife, and then Nathan Crowley, who was the production designer, who was in the garage next to us while Chris and I were writing, building early, kit bashing early models of the Tumbler and things like that. So it was like the four of us, and we would chat about all sorts of things. And there were a number of people that had screen tested, and I had advocated for Gyllenhaal. I mean, Gyllenhaal's amazing, Christian Bale's amazing, so who knows what. And then there were a couple of different candidates in the running for Raja Ghul as well.
Wait, is the lore, by the way, that did Daniel Day-Lewis ever get contacted for Raja Ghul or for Man of Steel? That one always sticks with me. Did you guys ever come close?
I don't believe he was contacted for Man of Steel. He may have been. I don't remember anyway, because it's been a while since we did Batman Begins. He may have been. But I remember having this conversation with Chris between these two of these candidates for Raja Ghul, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I vote for Liam Neeson." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Because the other candidate wasn't as old. Was a contemporary of Christian Bale's in terms of age, and Liam was a little older." And I said, "The whole story that we're telling is this paternal story, about the shadow of his father, and Raja Ghul, with all the Batman Rogues gallery in the Denny O'Neil stories, had this sort of paternal function. He was this shadow father." And I just said, for that reason, I think we lean in that direction. Now, I have no idea if I convinced Chris or not. Other people could have said the same thing, but yeah, we talked a lot about all of these various elements.
Did Jake ever actually screen test? Like, is there footage of him in the bat costume?
I believe there is. Yes.
Would have been a solid Batman in his own right, but a different one, of course.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
So I'm curious, just generally over that trilogy. There was always so much conjecture from film to film which villain from the Rogues Gallery you guys were going to choose to take on. Like what that process was. Like, did you start with what the story was, what the themes of the story were, and then kind of look at the Rogues Gallery and say who fits the story we're trying to tell?
Yeah, that was. Chris is very process driven, and I feel like, again, one of the things that in hindsight is revolutionary that we did in that process, we kind of stumbled into it, I suppose, was I had this sense, like with the Spider-Man movies, or one superhero movie started getting made and you had sequels, that the studios would always say, "Okay, who's our villain of the next movie going to be?"
Right.
And let's build a movie around that. And Chris was staunchly against that, because he said that's not a bottom ground up way of telling a story. Let's do it in a very naturalistic way. So let's figure out what kind of story we want to tell, and what we thematically want to explore with Bruce, and then let's figure out a villain that fits that story. And we had all these pitches. I remember after The Dark Knight, the head of Warner Brothers at the premiere saying, "You got to do the Riddler. Leo is the Riddler." Saying to me, "You got to tell Chris Leo is the Riddler." And I just, dude, that's not the way we work. And not taking nothing away from him. And I just remember in the process we were talking about this, and how the Joker had kind of challenged Bruce intellectually, but the dirty little secret of The Dark Knight Rises is it's kind of modeled after Rocky III, and you got to get knocked down to get back up, and he's Amazing. Just getting old, and
instead of going to Siberia, he goes to the pits to train. Totally.
And you need someone that's just a brute. And I just remember saying, "Well, is Bane?" And I was like, "Oh, Bane, so cheesy. I don't know." But But it's a process, you know, and it did seem in hindsight that it had to be Bane. And